The Two Thrones is the third installment in the wonderfully innovative Prince of Persia series, and this game pushes the series forward in ways that I really wasn't expecting at all. But again, suffered from development time constraints, but this time maybe the most tragic and baffling of them all. And in this episode, we're going to talk about exactly why. This episode is the final part of a trilogy of videos on the series, and if you haven't already, I'd highly recommend watching these first. Well, who am I kidding? You've watched them. So let's not waste any more time, guys. Timestamps are on screen now and also in the description. So spoiler warning from this point onwards. Alright, let's jump right into it. Our story once again follows the unnamed prince. After finally escaping the Dahakas' clutches and preventing the sands of time from ever being created, the prince travels with the Empress of Time, Kylina, to his homeland of Babylon. As they arrive, they see that the city is already under siege, on fire, they're attacked, and Kylina is instantly captured. Well, shit, so without any weapons, the prince just finds a butter knife laying around and charges in valiantly to save Kylina, and understandably gets his shit kicked in instantly. He is then forced to witness the release of the sands of time once again, and the destruction he has brought upon another city. Well, while watching this, the sands of time gets into one of his filthy little whip wounds, infecting him and birthing an evil alter ego, the Dark Prince. The game then follows the prince's journey across the smouldering ruins of Babylon as he battles with his darker alter self for control on his way to seek out and destroy the God King Vizier. Wait, the Vizier's back? The villain from the first game? Wait, Farah's back? And now she's a badass, no-nonsense gigabitch? How is this possible? Well, due to the prince changing and altering the timeline in the second game, the sands of time were never released, so the first game effectively never happened. So the prince and Farah never met, and the Vizier didn't die. Meaning the whole gang's back. The Vizier, Farah, Kylina.
Metal Gear.
Oh yeah, that's right, motherfuckers. You weren't expecting that, were you? Yeah, neither was I. This game has a stealth system that completely changes the direction of the series' combat design. If you're able to sneak up on an enemy before they get a whiff of your stinky little ass, you can perform a stealth takedown quick time event. They've even implemented new camera controls so you can scope out enemy patrols and new vantage points, but that doesn't really matter when the AI has as many brain cells as Kylina has fingers on her PS2 hands. Don't get me wrong, it's not a vastly deep stealth system, but you are incentivized to take down as many enemies as possible during stealth, because if you are caught out, I wasn't joking in the intro, your main hand weapon is effectively a butter knife. It's pathetic. And this might all seem like a completely different direction for combat from the previous games, and yeah, you'd be right, but this isn't a total redesign. It does keep a lot of the massive improvements that Warrior Within made. Enemies still drop weapons on death, and the dual-wielding weapon wombo combo system is back, but now there's even more of a reason to seek these weapons out, because again, butter knife, driving the player to actually seek out these weapons so they can take down enemies quicker. Talking about butter knives, if for some reason your favourite thing in games is stabbing walls, I don't know why it would be, but if it is, this game's got your back. It's one of the new many improvements to platforming that this game has made. Now the prince can shimmy up ledges and bounce off of springboards. These might seem small, but it allows for the developers to create a lot more variety in how they lay out traps and hazards. And it doesn't just stop there. There's new traps, new enemies, chariot races, new mechanics to weaken enemies by drawing them into the light, new camera system, and a completely new combat and platforming system when the prince turns into the Dark Prince. And all of these new mechanics and iterations on past mechanics greatly increase the game's most significant quality, the flow and pacing of the game itself. So, in comparison to Warrior Within, Two Thrones is linear as hell. You bounce from one set piece to the next at blistering speeds, and for me this is just a positive. The linearity of the game allows for the action and story to be spread out evenly throughout the game, keeping players engaged, whereas in Warrior Within I was constantly getting lost and confused on where I needed to go or what I needed to do due to its backtracking level design. But in comparison, one of the beauties of Warrior Within's pacing was with the Sand Wraith and how it pushed the player forward due to its depleting health and more energetic combat abilities, and it was just such a shame that this genius design to push and motivate the player to move forward was only used for the last few hours of Warrior Within. Well, it seems like the developers agreed, because the Dark Prince is effectively a carbon copy of the Sand Wraith, but with even more mechanics, and you play as him for over half of the game. In this Dark Prince form, he has a completely different moveset. Using his sharp whip, he is stupidly powerful, and it gives him so many more options in combat and platforming. But just like with the Sand Wraith, while in this form, your health is constantly draining until he consumes more sands of time, creating this intense drive to push forward, which is super exhilarating, but can be stupidly frustrating to just narrowly make it to your destination, and the prince just flops over dead of sand withdrawals. I really admire the narrative design of the Dark Prince as well. He is the prince's negative energy manifest. He's sexist, angry, impatient and unforgiving, just like the prince was in the first two games. And listening to the alter egos of the prince argue in his mind for control of his actions is just so enthralling. But even though one of our main characters is called the Dark Prince, the game isn't edgy at all. Oh shit, sorry, did you like the edgy prince?
Too bad for you.
The edge has been replaced with a lot of self-aware humour, taking the piss out of the series tropes. The prince goes into detail about his feelings, fears, his childhood in Babylon as he traverses its streets. They actually talk about how the prince was mentally affected by the Dahaka endlessly chasing him in Warrior Within. There is just way more character development here than we've seen in the previous games, rounding the prince out as a three-dimensional character, and this all extends to the redesign of Farah as well. These things are all amazing and wonderful additions to the series, but you can also unfortunately still see where some of the corners were cut due to time constraints. Again. Oh my god, time constraints have been the biggest problem facing this series since The Sands of Time was released, and again, this game was released only 1 year after Warrior Within. That is not enough time to make these changes, so some corners needed to be cut, and we can see evidence of this with nearly every aspect of the game. Some animations have been removed for unexplained reasons. In past games, when gaining new upgrades to your health, the prince would do this form of orgasm face with this beautiful animation, but here it just cuts away quickly and slaps some text on screen. Okay, most likely they didn't have time to animate these effects, and we can see further evidence of this with the takedowns in the game. Not only have they reused animations of the prince's attacks from Warrior Within to save on time, which is completely fine and warranted due to the time constraints, but what is really strange is how they've removed all of the gore. In Warrior Within, we were just chopping fuckers in half, but here, same animations, but none of the gore. This game's still got an M rating, so it's not a rating issue. This is most likely due to not having the time to animate these complicated death animations, and more time must have been put into animating these stealth takedowns, which I think is a net positive. Something that isn't a positive are the boss fights. They just feel so cheap and tacked on, just repeating the same mechanics over and over and over and over. Oh my god, I don't know why they did this. Was this to either fill time or meet some non-existent quota? Because this is an action video game and we can't have an action game without bosses. That would be ridiculous. And what the fuck is that? Oh, sorry guys, my doctor's calling me. Hello?
Hello, is that Mr. James Maid?
Yeah, speaking.
Oh yes, hello Mr. Maid. We've got your test results back here from the lab, and I'm very sorry to say that you've contracted the crank.
Oh my fucking god, the cranks are back. What is it with this series and cranks? I cannot deal with this anymore. Puzzles literally revolve around you revolving cranks to revolve platforms. Oh, stop it. Again, nothing has come close to the puzzle design that we saw in The Sands of Time. Not even close. Oh my god, this stuff just makes me depressed. I just want some difficult puzzles that make me use the 2 brain cells that I've got left. That's all I want. And I know this is largely due to the development constraints and the developers not having even close to the amount of time that they would need to develop these complex puzzles and complex gameplay designs. And this brings us back to the main reason of why this game got such a negative reception. Kindred Blades. So, for anyone who doesn't already know, Kindred Blades was the working title for Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones as it was shown to press at E3 2005. Rumours of an open world with backtracking and multiple endings were floated around by the media at this time, and this is where I believe a lot of the negative reception of the game stems from. I have no doubt that the developers intended to put all of these ambitious design concepts into the game, but then Ubisoft just kicked down the door and were like, "You got a year, you pricks."
That's not enough time!
And this is it, this is the problem, it's how they advertise the game. Showing off mechanics that won't be in the final product and empty promises only invites disappointment. That still exists to this day 15 years later. Many fans of the series still have a sour opinion of the Two Thrones for what it could have been with Kindred Blades, rather than appreciating it for what it actually is, and that's a shame. So, after all of this guys, what is my final verdict for Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones overall? Well, for me this game is simply great. The incredible pacing of the game and the new mechanics around stealth and switching between the two prince forms kept me enthralled from start to finish, and the way the story is so connected to the previous games makes this a beautiful send-off to this fantastic trilogy. But the real question is, what is my favourite game of the trilogy overall? Well, if you guys want to find out, let's see if you can get me to 800 subscribers before I release my next video, which is in 2 weeks, by sharing the channel around the best you can. And if you do, I'll make an extra bonus comparison episode just for you. Subscribe. Thank you so much for watching guys, it really means the world to me. Subscribe if you're new and tell me what you think personally about the Prince of Persia series below. I'd love to hear what you have to say and we can get a conversation going. And I want to give a special shout out to my lovely patrons for supporting these videos to actually be made. We have Jonathan Gray, Daddy Dank, Vostia, Sam Elliott, me because I do all the work. It's not me, it's a name, Man Perv and James. Without these wonderful people, these videos would not be possible, so thank you so much for all the support guys. If you want to help support the production of this series, you can do so by also checking out my Patreon, where you get to vote on the next Great or Hate episode and even see episodes early before they release. Even liking and sharing helps this channel grow, so thank you to everyone who's been helping in that way. If you want more of my combination of stupid humour and game development analysis, a new episode of Great or Hate releases every other Sunday, and I stream every Friday at 7 PM GMT at twitch.tv/itsjermaine. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for the support, mate. I'll see you in the next one.